Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I want to welcome to this week's episode of the CVC Home Service Success Network, presented every week by CVC Success Group. And today, what's our subject matter today? We're going to talk about the blood, sweat, and tears that you go through in business. The blood, sweat, and tears, because that's often what it feels like. And yesterday I had a gentleman called me yesterday and wanted to engage my services. He had been thinking about it for a lot of months. Actually, had saw me at a couple meetings, Cheryl, and had actually said, "Hey, I'm gonna be in touch with you." And for some reason, this week the pain got to him to the point that he pulled the trigger, sent me an email, wanted to know when we could talk. So we had a conversation yesterday, went through what his problems are. But again, in life, we go through the blood, sweat, and tears often. And it seems like we just don't get there. So I'm going to go first to my young friend here, Noah. And Noah, let me ask you a question. Give me a story about the blood, sweat, and tears, the pain of something you've been through in your young life. And I want to warn you before you go any further, there's going to be a lot more of these in your life. Okay. So you're not past them at this point. You're just getting started here. So let's share with the listeners. Tell us about a pain point in your life, something you had to struggle with the challenge of how do I get through this?
Sure. So I just recently finished my STCP. That makes me a Service Titan certified provider, and it is tedious. It is very tedious. There was tears, genuinely, trying to finish all of the different tests. For anybody that doesn't know what Service Titan is, big fans of Service Titan over here. It is a software, it is a CRM that allows you to do everything from taking in calls from your customers, dispatching your employees, doing your accounting, reporting. Kind of just it's an all-in-one, right? It's great, but because there are so many different abilities, right? There's so many different aspects to learn and get down about it, and each one of those major aspects, as somebody who's getting their certification, is tested on, right? So walking into it, walking into any certification, you're like, oh, how bad can this really be? About 7 months bad. um, so yeah, it was rough, and it takes time and effort, and more effort when you think you have passed a test and have to go back and complete it again, vice versa. Lots of research, outside time, not even touching the actual testing website itself. So it's tedious, but it's really cool to get to learn a lot of the extra stuff that you wouldn't sometimes even see about this service, because as we've talked about the past couple of weeks on this podcast, just about using these types of softwares, like Chirp last week, for example. Baseline, you can get as much out of this service as you want, but once you really start going in depth and understanding the baseline, it just opens up so many doors to learn all of the extra things. And that's what someone like me, like an STCP, provides, is finding all that extra information and extra abilities to just take your business to that next level. So, like I said, it was very tedious, lots of tears, but so happy that it's done. And now I'm just so happy that I can enable clients to be able to get the most out of their software.
So let me ask you this. You take a class, you feel like you take a class and then you sit down for the test. And then you get notified by email, I presume, that you didn't pass that test. How does that feel?
It hurts. It hurts a lot. Depending on the effort you put in for a lot of those tests that I've taken, or even like tests just in general in my life. I'm a college student. I walking into a test in the next hour here, studying and putting in all of those hours, not understanding things, having to go and seek out those other resources and getting that, to then still find out that you didn't pass. That's a big point where you sink or swim, right? You find, okay, it's time to pivot. What did I do wrong? If given the opportunity to take it again, that's going to allow me to
Yeah.
be able to get that 100%, or whatever that passing grade is the next time, to be able to hit it. So it doesn't always happen first time, right? But I think it strengthens you for sure.
Yeah. And to quote your mother, Brandy Biswell, Jerry, this service titan is worse than my nursing training was because your mama broke down in tears a lot when she was going through her training to get her certification. Did she share this with you that how tough this was going to be?
She did. Yeah. The cool thing I think about it, though, she did share it was hard. But what's nice is I got to see less of, I didn't really see the end of her taking it, but I saw the opportunities it provided her after she finished it. Getting to work with clients and getting to genuinely help companies take their business to the next level with this service, like I mentioned, just being able to see the positive output of what this opportunity can bring once you have finished it, it was just really like the main thing that was motivating me to get it finished the whole time.
Fantastic. So, Josh, what about you? You got a good blood, sweat, and tears story in Josh Kelly's life, and tell us how you were able to power through this.
Well, losing my foreman in 2020, that was a big loss. It required me to go back into the field and work a lot of long days to pick up that slot because he left in the winter. He left the area. So it required me, after owning the company for 20 years, working in it, to have to go back into the field on short notice and get the new guys trained and this, that, and the other. It was a lot of hours. There was days on Saturdays, like on Saturday I would get home, like Friday night I would just conk out. Saturday I would just sit in the recliner because I couldn't move. I was in so much pain.
Yeah, because basically you've been sitting in an office and all of a sudden you're thrust back out, climbing on roofs, doing
Yep.
all the things. And let's face it, you're not a small guy, are you?
No.
So
not
having to
small
get
at all.
off, and also you've got some back issues that come into play. Am I correct?
Well, I got, yes, that and old football injuries. I've got arthritis in my elbow and my knee. Those are all old football injuries. So, I remember I was doing a Class A chimney run with my guys. Got to be about 5 o'clock. Eric was on a steep roof. I was like, all right, I'll run you up this piece of pipe. I got about 2 rungs up, and I said, I can't move. I said, I can't do it, Eric. I can't physically move. And then the homeowner, he said, the homeowner asked me if I wanted some leave. I said, yes, all of them was my response.
Yeah.
I said, how many do you have?
So how did you power through this, Josh? What was in your mindset that I got to make this happen? How did you convince yourself you had to keep going through this?
There was families to feed. If I didn't go in the field, we had 10 families, 12 families that weren't going to bring home a paycheck. They were going to have to look for jobs because there was no one to do the installs and bring the revenue.
Yep, I got you covered. So the mindset was that people depended on you.
Yep.
And another one is, Josh, back when Service Titan, Noah was talking about Service Titan, and back when Service Titan came out, you had the ability that you moved right through Service Titan. I can remember one time I said, hey, Josh, how come you're not having problems and everybody else is? And you told me, so Jerry, the difference is I speak geek, and you could communicate with the engineers, the software designers, whatever, and very few people could do that. It was a strength of yours. But going back in the field, that really wasn't a strength of yours and something you were prepared to do, was it?
I had the technical skills to do it because that's, I've always been very technical, but physically I was not ready to do that. I still had to run the showroom. I still had to run all the techs. I still had to do the accounting. I still had to do all of that. So the mental toll was, I don't know, what was probably worse than the physical toll, which was pretty heavy.
Yeah. So Cheryl, you've had a lot of challenges in life. I know you better than anyone else on this earth. Okay. And so as I say this about the blood, sweat, and tears, there's a lot of things you could say here, but let me ask you, what stands out as the worst situation that Cheryl had to power through in her life? It can be business, it can be personal, but what I'm wanting to get to is, what was it and how did you manage to go through it?
Okay, we're going to dig way back. It was in 1974.
Before Noah was born, Noah.
Or Noah.
Or Josh was born.
Before Josh.
I became a single parent with a 4-week-old and a 4-year-old. And no money, a house, and 2 kids at that time. And scared to death. So, to be honest, I cried one day because I had nothing. I had nowhere to go. I had no technical back skills to fall on other than just working with my dad some. So I got mad the next day, extremely mad. And I made a phone call to my uncle. I told him I wanted to hang wallpaper. He was in a sheetrock business, and after a lot of persuasion, I talked him into introducing me to some of his people. So I went out and I started hanging wallpaper at a time when women were not on construction site. Again, having a 4-week-old and a 4-year-old, I was leaving my kids that I was totally missing, having to go to work sometimes 10, 12 hours a day, raise them, be a mom. And when you start in construction, you don't get a paycheck every week. So there was a period there when the struggle was, are we going to be able to eat? And we did. I got it going. I worked hard. I bitched at the guys when they told me that a woman couldn't do it. It was kind of like I came from the South, hold my beer and watch me. So I had never hung but very little wallpaper, and I don't know why that came up. I was just sitting there, and all of a sudden it seemed like the thing to do. So I started, and 22 years later, I was still doing it. That's when I walked away from it. I went from residential to multifamily to commercial. As far as I know, I was the first woman that had ever worked on a construction site, had a crew on construction site in North Carolina. So was it a struggle? Yes, because back then women we weren't denied, but we were told we couldn't do things that men could do. And as you know me, that you don't ever tell Cheryl she can't, because that's when she's going to prove. And I did. And was it a struggle? Yes, those were long days. There were long nights, because then you had to be home and take care of the kids. So once I got that started, I was missing softball. So I was doing wallpaper, raising kids, playing City League. It just whirlwind. And am I proud of it? Yes. Like I say, not many women can say they did anything for 22 years nowadays, especially moving up way past many of the men's jobs. So that was where the most tears were shed, because some nights you'd come home and, like Noah, you sit there and you cried because you didn't know where you were going the next day.
Yeah. So, and also, you did some pretty crazy stuff. I know I've walked into job sites that you were doing wallpaper in. I saw you climbing ladders, set up on ladders that I told you, you're a fool being up there, lady. I mean, really, she did some really stupid stuff in those days. So what drove you to this? What was the mindset that had to get there to where you were going?
2 kids.
Two
That
kids.
was the mindset. 2 kids, and to prove to every guy that said I couldn't do it that I could.
Okay, so every time you see, I hope this doesn't offend someone, you see some woman that's in this situation and they're just sitting there, boo hoo, woe is me. The world is dumping on me. How did you not go into that mode?
I wasn't raised that way. My dad, my grandfather, everyone always taught us, you pick yourself up by your bootstraps and you go on. The world goes on whether you stop or not.
Yeah.
And so, number one, even going through all this, I was too proud to ask my parents for cash.
Right.
So
And yeah.
that's what drove you.
Yeah. And knowing Josh's parents as I do, knowing Noah's parents as I do, to me, both of those have the upbringing to power through stuff. Noah, would you agree that your parents have instilled this type of drive into you?
Oh, 100%. I have seen all sides of the business and the different struggles that have gone throughout their lives, whether it's related to business or outside of that, family issues, things like that. And it's if anything, through the struggle, it's encouraging. It's encouraging that they kept going through all of it, and just motivates me to be able to, hold that same thing on my shoulder and be able to just, use it as a tool to go through my life and either, know where not to navigate or how to get through things when things get hard.
Yeah. Josh, same token. You got parents that drove through. When I look at your parents, 1978, they were in the copier industry. And your dad, mom, no, who was the one that drove it, decided they'd become chimney sweeps. You remember, were you living at that point?
Nope, not until 79.
Okay.
But that ad, you heard about all those old timers, that ad in Mother Earth News magazine. And then my dad went up to the Black Magic Chimney Sweep School and came back and started sweeping chimneys.
Yeah. And I can remember being in your mama's office and seeing a picture of her and your dad on a Harley where they used to ride Harleys, if I remember correctly. Am I right about that?
That one's from Sturgis.
Sturgis.
Yeah, that one's dad's Softail.
She never told me they went to Sturgis. I just knew they rode motorcycles. Well, this is what happens. We go through these challenges. I've been through my own, okay? In fact, I'm the only one out of the four of you that's wrote a book about these challenges called Chaos to Reinvention. And it talks about the challenges. And the challenges, to me, the biggest one was when I lost everything and I had to start all over. I'm not telling you this from a sob story, but all of a sudden, no, I got nothing. Okay. I mean, we've lost our commercial, we've lost our businesses, we've lost the home we were living in. We basically lost about everything at that point. And it was like, and like I said, it was like when I finally had this gold nugget learning experience, that it was really tough going through it. I went through some really emotional times over this. So when you go into this type of situation, and you lose it, and you've got to start over with nothing to start building it up. Shell's kind of like, was it similar to what you went through whenever you were dumped with the two kids, when you had to look after David and Lori all alone?
Yeah, I mean, you can't reach out and ask for help, or there's no help there, is what it is. And the emotions they just tear you up, because can I be the provider? Can I do what I need? Can I keep my home? Can I afford to keep my vehicle? Can I make it? And those, again, that was your drivers. It was my drivers also.
Yeah. And, Chuck just added in there, I posted up, my belief for success is having business and personal discipline, creating systems for job tax, correct job costing, budgeting, waste elimination, knowing your true CODB, which stands for cost of doing business, constant training, having a coach, plan for your financial future, and delaying your gratification. Having this in place lessens the bad times. Work smarter, not harder. Dead on the money. And if you're a business owner, you're a manager listening to me right now, what Chuck just laid out some real wisdom there for you. It's like I often ask business owners, if I could get every bit of information in your brain and put it down on paper, how big would that stack of paper be? That stack of paper would be feet tall where it's typed onto there. So from this is where building those systems up. I mean, Josh, one of the things that you did, which is probably the most amazing thing that I've ever seen Josh do, was you built this wiki page system. Why did you build this system of downloading your brain? Because that's basically what you did. I like to call it a digital knowledge base, because you took it. So what drove you to do this, Josh? Why? You went through the pain. You went through years of work to get this done. What drove you there?
Well, like you said, pain. You can take the emotion of anger and turn it into a pain point, because that's what it was. I mean, I was constantly angry at people coming to me for BS, is remedial stuff they could easily look up. They wouldn't take the time, or they'd interrupt me. As if you're sitting in a retail store, as an owner, you're easy pickings for a salesperson to interrupt you, whether they know the answer or not. They just don't want to look it up. You got CSRs that need to be trained. How do they have a reference because they're not going into the field? Giving them those tools because I was just tired of like everyone's like, hey, what about this? What about that? I was like, how am I expected to know everything about every job, but you can't know just your job in this company? And that's what it started off. I started off doing it for the dispatcher. We were onboarding somebody, and I had a bunch of stuff, but it was about turning it into an easy to use system for them. And that was an easy way for me to get a dispatcher up and running in under 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Turn them into an expert in a short amount of time.
So would you agree when I say this is downloading your brain? That's what you did.
Absolutely.
So how did you stay on this task? Because what I know you did is you worked on this just about every day for years. Yeah. How did you stay on task?
Well, it was always in I call it kind of like surge pricing, but it was in bunches. I would get pissed off and then I'd write a bunch of stuff for like 3-4 days, and then I'd calm down and I wouldn't look at it for a while. Then I'd hire a new salesperson, and then they'd find a new way to piss me off. And so then I would go back and I'd write some more. Or sometimes the new people challenged me to look at it in a different light. So then I'd go back and look at my checklists again. It's like, okay, these haven't been updated in a while. What's going on? Are these not catching everything? Do they need to be updated? So you just, Service Titan also pushed me in that because you're constantly up. I got to a point now where my forms are top notch. At first, the forms are all in HTML and JavaScript, and getting them to where I can put images in them, and you're just constantly improving. Okay, well, we found something else it's reoccurring now in the inspections. Okay, so maybe we need to update this. The price book, okay, we want to add a new service. So here's a new language. Here's a great before and after we did. So, putting those in, learning how it presents, and then learning how, one of the interesting things I learned is before we did the remodel in the showroom, we used to have pedestals with product on it, and you would just walk around the pedestals, and I would actually just study how the customer was interacting with the product. And like I say, I have great long-term memory, short-term memory. That's why I could never be a waiter, because I would walk away from the table and be like, I have no idea what anybody ordered. Yeah. But I had a great long-term memory, and I would just study like how, when I was on the sales floor, how are they interacting with the product? And I learned to say, okay, pedestals aren't the greatest thing. If you really want them, and I always say getting someone to that light bulb moment is always the best thing. Is how do I get them to the light bulb moment as fast as I can? Is that creating a video, which I've done lots of video content creation? Is it a brochure? Is it my own custom images in a brochure? Is it how I lay the product out? And when we did the showroom, we got rid of the pedestals, and of course our insert wall was 65 foot long, and they were all in one row. And then the customer just stood back and would go, that one. And it cut down on that, walking around, looking at stuff, and you could speed up the decision-making process.
Yeah. What I see a lot of people, they know where they want to go. They really know where they want to go. The problem they have is twofold. Number one, they cannot map out that strategic plan, the step-by-step plan to get where they're wanting to go. That's problem number one. Then I see problem number two is something comes up and throws an obstacle in their way, and it just halts them. But Josh, you said the key thing a while ago. You were able to write your best SOPs when you were mad. I'm not going to use the word you used, but when you were mad, right? When you had
absolutely.
Okay. So that's what you got to do. Whenever the world dumps on you, you got to get mad. Not get mad at the rest of the world. You're just mad because you got to get where you want to go. And that's what it's all about. And that's why we exist here at CVC Success Group. We exist to help people just like you that face these challenges, that need someone to work with, to coach them through it, So, hey, if we can help you out with these challenges, hey, feel free to reach out to us. You're seeing all of our email addresses right here on the screen right now. Any one of us would love to have a conversation with you at any time. You got hiring challenges. Cheryl, everybody's got hiring challenges. You got hiring challenges. I'm feeling really good right now because one of our clients has seemed to have filled up his workforce in the last few days. That was a major challenge to him, wasn't it, Cheryl?
Totally major.
And what he had to do was stay on this every single day. Cheryl, how many conversations a week did you have with this client?
Sometimes a half a dozen.
Sometimes half a dozen. That's it. So, folks, if we can help you get through these challenges, reach out and let us know. We're CVC Success Group, and you know what? We're waiting to hear from you right now. Get in touch with any one of us. Let's get you past this hump, and let's whoop the world and move on and get you to your dreams. What do you think? And with that, I want to thank you for being here today. Hope you have a fantastic weekend, and we look forward to seeing you next week. And they don't know this yet, Noah, but guess who our guest is next week, Noah?
Oh gosh, I don't know who.
Your mother.
Oh no. I'm so excited.
You're going to get to interview your mother next week. Okay. How's this sound?
Oh,
I'm looking forward to it. I think we'll be in the same house too, so that'll be fun.
Well, you have to go to separate rooms for this. Okay. So folks, appreciate you joining us. We'll see you next week on the next episode of the CVC Home Service Success Network. And every week, it's really an honor, it's a privilege, and it's a pleasure to be able to talk to you this week. We look forward to hearing from you whenever we can help